The Galactic Council had ruled the known universe for 12,000 years. Their chambers floated in the void between galaxies, a massive station that housed representatives from 600 civilized species. The Council believed themselves to be the peak of evolution, the guardians of order, the bringers of peace. They had never been more wrong about anything in their long existence. Ambassador Sarah Chun stood in the central chamber, her small human frame dwarfed by the towering aliens around her. The Vraxians stood 15 feet tall, their crystalline bodies reflecting the light of distant stars. The Korthax delegation occupied an entire section with their hive mind collective. The Zelthrim floated in containment fields, their gaseous forms shifting colors based on their emotions. And there, at the highest platform, sat the Council Patriarch, a being so ancient that nobody remembered his species' original name. Sarah had come with a simple request. Earth wanted to join the Galactic Council as an equal member. Humanity had developed faster than light travel only 40 years ago, but in that short time, they had established colonies on 17 worlds. They had met dozens of alien species, traded peacefully, shared knowledge, and asked for nothing but recognition. The Patriarch's voice boomed through the chamber, translated instantly into every known language. The human petition is denied. Furthermore, humanity is hereby restricted to their home system. All colonies must be abandoned within one standard cycle. Sarah felt her blood run cold. Restricted? We've broken no laws. We've harmed no one. On what grounds? On the grounds that you are dangerous? A Vraxian counselor interrupted, his voice like grinding glass. Your species develops too quickly. You adapt too fast. You are unpredictable. Another counselor, a floating Zelthrim, whose colors pulsed angry red, added, You have no natural place in the galactic order. You possess no unique biological advantages, yet you thrive. This is unnatural. This is threatening. Sarah's hands clenched into fists at her sides. She had spent 3 years preparing for this moment, learning council protocols, studying galactic law, building relationships with sympathetic species. All of it was crumbling. We are not a threat. We seek only to coexist peacefully. The Patriarch leaned forward, and Sarah could see something in his ancient eyes that made her stomach turn. It wasn't anger or fear. It was contempt. Pure, absolute contempt. You seek to coexist, but you do not understand your place. Let me make it clear. Humanity will accept the restrictions, or humanity will face consequences. What kind of consequences? Sarah demanded, her diplomatic training barely keeping her voice steady. The answer came not in words, but in action. The chamber's view screens suddenly displayed images of Earth's colonies. New Shanghai on Kepler 442b, with its sprawling biodomes housing 3 million souls. The farming settlements on Proxima Centauri C, feeding billions back on Earth. The research station orbiting TRAPPIST-1, where human scientists worked alongside alien colleagues to cure diseases that plagued a dozen species. Then the screens showed something else. Council warships, thousands of them, moving into position around each colony. Sarah's heart hammered against her ribs. You wouldn't. There are civilians, children. The Patriarch's expression didn't change. The Council has decided that humanity requires a lesson in obedience. You will withdraw from your colonies immediately. Any resistance will be met with the full force of Council justice. Sarah activated her communicator, her hands shaking. This is Ambassador Chun to all human colonies. Evacuate immediately. This is not a drill. Get everyone to the transport ships now. But she knew the math. Each colony had hundreds of thousands of people. The transport ships couldn't carry everyone, and the Council knew it. They were counting on it. The evacuation began immediately. On New Shanghai, sirens wailed as people ran through the streets toward the spaceports. Parents clutched children. The elderly were carried by neighbors. And everyone moved with the desperate speed that comes from knowing death is approaching. The transport ships lifted off one after another, packed beyond capacity. But there were still so many people waiting. The council ships opened fire 30 minutes before the deadline. They had set. A first plasma beam hit New Shanghai Central Biodome. The structure that had taken 10 years to build and housed 800,000 people vaporized in 3 seconds. The shock wave from the explosion destroyed 6 neighboring domes. 2 million people died in the first minute. On Proxima Centauri C, the farming settlements had less warming. The council ships simply appeared and began systematic bombardment. Fields that had been carefully cultivated to grow earth crops in alien soil burned. Small towns where families had built homes and lives turned to ash. The colonists ran, but there was nowhere to run to dot at TRAPPIST-1E. The research station tried to broadcast a surrender, tried to explain that they were scientists, not soldiers, that they had been working on medical research that would benefit all species. The council ships destroyed the station mid-transmission. Among the dead were not just humans, but 17 alien scientists who had been collaborating on the cure for Zelthram wasting disease. The Zelthram counselors who had voted for the attack didn't seem to care. Sarah watched the feeds in the council chamber, tears streaming down her face. She watched people she knew, people she had visited and laughed with and shared meals with, die. She watched children who would never grow up. She watched dreams and hopes and futures burn. "Stop this," she whispered. Then, louder, "Stop this. They're evacuating. You've made your point." The patriarch gestured, and the screens went dark. "The point, Ambassador Chun, is that humanity must learn its place. The strong rule. The weak obey. This is the natural order that the Council maintains. Your species thought themselves equal to those of us who have ruled for millennia. This is the correction of that mistaken belief." Something broke inside Sarah at that moment. Not her spirit, but her faith in the possibility of peace. She had believed that reason could prevail, that diplomacy could bridge any gap. She had been a fool. How many? She asked quietly. A Korthax counselor consulted a datapad. Current estimates suggest 4.7 million human casualties across all colonies. Approximately 600,000 successfully evacuated. 5 million dead. 5 million people killed not in war, not in self-defense, but as a demonstration of power. As a lesson, Sarah looked up at the council numbers. These beings who considered themselves the guardians of civilization and saw them for what they truly were, bullies, tyrants, murderers, who had grown so comfortable in their power that they could casually order the deaths of millions and feel nothing. "You have made the greatest mistake in your species' history," Sarah said softly. The patriarch actually laughed. "Is that a threat, little human? Will you declare war on the entire council? You have no military. Your total population across all worlds is barely 14 billion. The council commands the resources of 600 species and controls more than 40,000 warships. What exactly do you think you can do?" Sarah Chun, ambassador of Earth, looked at the being who had just ordered the deaths of 5 million of her people and smiled. It was not a pleasant smile. It was the smile of someone who had just realized that she no longer had to follow the rules. "We are going to show you what happens when you spill human blood," she said. "We are going to remind this galaxy of something you've forgotten in your 12,000 years of comfortable rule. We are going to teach you that there are worse things than war." She turned and walked out of the chamber. Behind her, the council members laughed. They had no idea that they had just signed their own death warrant. They had no idea that humanity, when pushed to the edge, didn't just push back. Humanity became the edge. The message reached Earth within hours. Sarah had sent it through every channel, encrypted and duplicated 1,000 times, so the Council couldn't stop it. When the people of Earth learned that 5 million of their brothers and sisters had been murdered, something fundamental changed in human civilization. The protests started immediately. Billions filled the streets of every major city. They weren't calling for justice through diplomacy. They weren't asking for council investigations. They were demanding blood for blood. The peaceful species that had spent the last 40 years trying to make friends in the galaxy had remembered something buried deep in their evolutionary history. Humans were predators. They had crawled up from the bottom of Earth's food chain by being meaner, smarter, and more stubborn than everything else that wanted to kill them. The Council had awakened something that should have stayed asleep. Admiral Marcus Stone stood in Earth's Strategic Command Center, watching the numbers scroll across his screens. He was 70 years old, a veteran of Earth's last major conflict, the Unification War that had ended 35 years ago. He had hoped to never see war again. The Council had taken that hope and burned it along with 5 million people. Status report. He ordered. Captain Jennifer Park, his tactical officer, pulled up the displays. All military personnel had been recalled from leave. Reserves are being activated. The civilian shipyards have been nationalized and converted to military production. We have 1,700 warships currently operational, with another 3,000 in various stages of construction. Stone nodded. 1,700 ships against the Council's 40,000. The math was impossible, but humans had never been good at accepting impossible odds. What about the colonies? The survivors? 600,000 evacuees are being processed. They're angry, sir. Many are requesting immediate military enlistment. We've had to turn away volunteers because we can't process them fast enough. Another officer spoke up. Sir, we're receiving reports from across human space. Every civilian transport ship, every cargo hauler, every private yacht is being volunteered for military conversion. People are donating their ships, their savings, their time. We've never seen anything like this level of mobilization. Stone understood. The Council had tried to teach humanity a lesson about power, but they had forgotten a crucial fact about humans. Humans didn't just fight for territory or resources. They fought for each other. They fought for revenge. And when they fought for those things, they didn't stop until either they were dead or their enemy was. Communications get me every human colony, station, and settlement. I don't care how remote. Everyone hears this. The channel opened, connecting Stone to every human being beyond Earth. 14 billion people, scattered across dozens of worlds, all listening. This is Admiral Marcus Stone of Earth Strategic Command. By now, you all know what happened at New Shanghai, Proxima Centauri, and Trappist. 5 million of our people were murdered by the Galactic Council for the crime of existing, for the crime of being successful, for the crime of refusing to bow. The Council believes they have taught us a lesson. They believe we will accept our place as an inferior species. They are wrong. He paused, letting the words sink in. Humanity is hereby declaring a state of total war against the Galactic Council and all species who support them. This is not a war for territory. This is not a war for resources. This is a war of extinction. The Council will cease to exist. Every counselor who voted for the attack will face human justice. Every species that does not immediately withdraw support for the Council will be considered an enemy combatant. Across human space, people listened. Some cheered. Some cried. But all of them understood what Stone was really saying. This wasn't going to be a conventional war. This was going to be the kind of war that humanity had waged throughout its violent history when pushed too far. This was going to be total. On Earth, the largest manufacturing effort in human history began. Shipyards that had been building colony vessels and trading ships were retooled. Every resource was directed toward a single purpose: building a military force that could challenge the Council. Engineers worked 18-hour days. Factories operated around the clock. The entire economy shifted to a war footing in a matter of weeks, but ships alone wouldn't be enough. The Council had a massive numerical advantage and 12,000 years of military experience. Humanity needed an edge, and they needed it fast. Dr. Robert Kim headed the Emergency Weapons Development Program, working from a facility deep beneath the Rocky Mountains. His team had been given unlimited resources and a single instruction: create weapons that would make the Council regret ever touching humanity. The problem, Kim explained to his team of 300 scientists and engineers, is that the Council fights by rules. They've been fighting by the same rules for thousands of years. Energy shields, plasma weapons, kinetic barriers. Every species uses the same basic technology because the Council mandates it. They call it maintaining galactic order. I call it making themselves predictable. A young engineer named Lisa Chun raised her hand. So we don't follow their rules? Kim smiled. Exactly. We go back to basics. Humans didn't evolve in space. We evolved in an environment trying to kill us every second of every day. We got creative. We got mean. We learned to use everything as a weapon. It's time we reminded the galaxy what that means. The projects began. Kinetic kill vehicles that used no energy signature, just raw velocity and tungsten rods that hit with the force of nuclear weapons. Biological agents specifically tailored to each Council species' biology. Psychological warfare programs designed to break the morale of beings who had never experienced true fear. Nanoweapon swarms that could disassemble a ship at the molecular level. And then there was Project Reaper. Kim stood in front of the prototype, a sphere barely 3 feet in diameter. It looked harmless, like a large steel ball bearing. It was anything but harmless. This is an automated hunter-killer drone. It's powered by a microfusion reactor that will last for approximately 100 years. It's equipped with advanced AI, capable of tracking targets across multiple star systems. It can hide in asteroid fields, debris clouds, or even a planet's atmosphere. And once it locks onto a target, it never stops. Never. It will follow that target across the galaxy if necessary, and when it catches up, it will detach into smaller units that penetrate any defense and detonate inside the target vessel. One of the military observers whistled. How many can we build? Kim checked his data. With current production capacity, about 10,000 per month. We can deploy them throughout Council space within 6 months. Every Council ship, every Council station, every Council world will have to watch for these things. Every shadow could be a Reaper. Every unexplained sensor reading could be death approaching. This was the war humanity was going to fight. Not a war of honor or glory or great fleet battles where the strongest side won. This was going to be a war of terror, of psychological destruction, of making the Council afraid to sleep. The Council had forgotten that humans had spent millennia fighting each other before they reached the stars. They had forgotten that humans had developed weapons so terrible they almost destroyed themselves multiple times. They had forgotten that when humans decided something needed to die, they were very, very good at making it happen. 3 months after the massacre, the first human strike force deployed. It wasn't aimed at Council military targets. It was aimed at the Council's economic infrastructure. Human ships appeared simultaneously at 17 major trade hubs scattered across Council space. They didn't fire a shot. They just delivered a message. Leave. You have 1 hour. Most species evacuated immediately. A few tried to resist or alert Council military forces. Those stations were destroyed so completely that debris fields marked where they used to be. The message was clear. This wasn't going to be a war where the Council protected its citizens. This was going to be a war where everyone in Council space was a target until they stopped supporting the Council. Word spread quickly. Entire species began debating whether supporting the Council was worth the risk. Trade routes shut down. Economic partnerships dissolved. The Council's member species started to realize that the comfortable order they had enjoyed for thousands of years was built on the assumption that nobody would ever challenge them. Seriously, humanity was challenging them seriously. Admiral Stone watched the intelligence reports with grim satisfaction. They're fracturing. 3 species have declared neutrality. 7 more are considering it. The Council is having to pull military forces from offensive positions to protect trade routes and economic centers. Captain Park nodded. It's working, sir. But the Council's main battle fleet is still intact. Eventually, they're going to come for Earth directly. Stone had been expecting this. Let them come. We'll show them what it costs to attack a human world. By the time they reach Earth, they'll understand that killing 5 million of us was the worst strategic decision in galactic history. They spilled human blood, and they thought we would break. Instead, they made us focused. They made us unified. They made us remember what we really are. He looked at the star map, showing human forces spreading across the galaxy like a virus. They wanted us to know our place. We're going to teach the... 6 months into the war, the Galactic Council was learning fear. Not the abstract concept they had studied in their academic archives about primitive civilizations, but real, visceral fear that kept them awake and made them jump at shadows. The Reaper drones had been deployed. Captain Vexaler of the Vraxian Imperial Fleet watched his sensor screens with growing paranoia. His ship, the Crystalline Majesty, was one of the most advanced warships in the Council's fleet. Its shields could withstand direct hits from plasma cannons. Its weapons could crack a planet's crust. Its sensors could detect a fly on a moon from 3 light years away. None of that mattered anymore. Contact bearing 273, his sensor officer reported, his crystalline voice cracking with stress. Small object, approximately 1 meter diameter, matching profile of human Reaper drone. Vexaler had been through this 14 times in the past week. 14 times they had detected what might be a Reaper. 13 times it had been asteroids, debris, or sensor ghosts. The 14th time it had been a Reaper, and only the sacrifice of 2 escort ships had allowed the Crystalline Majesty to escape. All weapons, target that contact. Fire on my mark. The ship's massive plasma batteries swiveled, tracking the tiny object. The problem with fighting Reapers was that you couldn't take chances. If you hesitated, the thing got close enough to split into submunitions that could penetrate any shield. If you fired, and it was just an asteroid, you wasted ammunition and revealed your position to any actual Reapers in the area. It was a psychological nightmare. And the humans knew it. Fire. The plasma beams lanced out, vaporizing the object. The sensor officer studied the debris signature. Confirmed asteroid fragment, Captain. Not a Reaper. Vexaler's hands clenched, the crystalline structure of his fingers grinding against each other. 14 encounters, and only 1 real Reaper. The humans were salting space with decoys, fake sensor signatures, anything to keep Council ships constantly on edge. Crews were exhausted. Ammunition stores were being depleted, firing at ghosts. And somewhere out there, real Reapers were waiting, patient as death itself. The Crystalline Majesty wasn't alone in its suffering. Across Council space, the war was going very differently than the Council had imagined. They had expected human ships to mass together, to engage in honorable fleet battles where superior numbers and technology would win the day. Instead, humans fought like ghosts. Small attack groups, never more than 5 ships, would appear at the edge of a system, fire a spread of kinetic missiles, and jump away before Council forces could respond. The missiles were simple, impossible to jam, because they had no electronics. Just big chunks of metal accelerated to incredible speeds. They couldn't be stopped by energy shields designed for plasma weapons. When they hit with the force of small nuclear weapons. Supply convoys stopped running regular routes because human attack groups ambushed them. The humans had apparently decided that crew-served weapons were inefficient, so they used autonomous attack craft, small drone ships packed with explosives that would ram Council vessels. The drones were too small and numerous to intercept effectively. A single human ship could deploy hundreds of them. Council stations found themselves isolated, unable to receive supplies or reinforcements. Garrisons that had stood for centuries were abandoned as species decided that maintaining Council positions wasn't worth the constant threat of human attack. In the Council chambers, the mood had shifted from contempt to concern to something approaching panic. The Patriarch stood before the assembled councilors, his ancient features tight with stress. "Status report," he demanded. High Counselor Rexith of the Vraxians consulted his data tablet. "We have lost effective control of 47 sectors. 17 species have declared neutrality and withdrawn their military forces from Council service. 8 species are in active negotiations with human representatives, discussing terms of non-aggression pacts. Our military strength has been reduced by 32% through attrition, desertion, and strategic withdrawal." The Zelthrim representative, colors pulsing an anxious yellow, spoke up. "The humans are not fighting a war. They are conducting extermination. They have destroyed 17 civilian stations, 63 trading outposts, and 42 mining facilities. They are targeting our economic infrastructure, our supply lines, our ability to sustain a long-term conflict. Every world that supports the Council is now experiencing human raids. They strike without warning, cause maximum damage, and disappear. We cannot defend everywhere at once." A Korthax Hive speaker added, "Our populations are losing faith in the Council's ability to protect them." On 14 Council worlds, there have been protests demanding negotiation with the humans. On 7 worlds, there have been riots. The species are questioning why they are fighting this war at all. The Patriarch slammed his fist down, the impact reverberating through the chamber. "This war began because humanity refused to accept their place. We are the Council. We have maintained order for 12,000 years. We do not negotiate with upstart primitives who only developed spaceflight 4 decades ago." But even as he spoke, the Patriarch knew the truth. The Council was losing, not in the conventional sense of having their fleets destroyed in grand battles, but in the slow, grinding way where every day brought new losses, new defections, new evidence that the comfortable order was collapsing. The humans had done something the Council hadn't seen in millennia. They had made the cost of war too high to bear, not through superior technology or greater numbers, but through sheer, relentless brutality. Every Council ship had to watch for Reapers. Every station had to worry about kinetic strikes. Every supply convoy had to run a gauntlet of drone attacks. The Council's vast military machine was being bled to death by 10,000 cuts. And then the humans escalated. The planet Selthar was home to the Vraxian Council delegation, a beautiful world of crystal forests and singing mountains. It housed 3 billion Vraxians, including most of the species' political and cultural elite. It was heavily defended by orbital platforms and a fleet of 200 warships. The humans appeared at the edge of the system with a force of just 10 ships. Admiral Stone himself commanded the strike force from the bridge of humanity's newest warship, the Righteous Fury. He watched the tactical display as Council forces moved to intercept. "They're taking the bait," Captain Park reported. "Enemy fleet moving to engage. Orbital defenses powering up." Stone nodded. begin the real attack. At the opposite side of the system, 50 human cargo ships dropped out of FTL. They weren't military vessels. They were old colony transports, mining haulers, anything with a cargo bay and an engine. And those cargo bays were filled with kinetic kill vehicles. Thousands upon thousands of tungsten rods, each one precisely targeted. The cargo ships didn't even slow down. They just opened their bays and dumped their payloads, then jumped away. The rods were already moving at significant velocity from the ship's momentum. Small thrusters adjusted their trajectories, aiming them at specific targets on the planet's surface. The Vraxian defenders realized what was happening too late. The orbital platforms tried to intercept, managing to destroy perhaps 10% of the incoming projectiles. The rest hit atmosphere at thousands of meters per second, friction heating them white-hot as they plunged toward their targets. Zelthar's capital city died in 17 seconds. The crystal towers that had stood for 8,000 years shattered as tungsten rods hit, with the force of tactical nuclear weapons. Government centers, military command posts, communication hubs, all of them evaporated. The crystal forests surrounding the city caught fire from the heat of the impacts, and the singing mountains fell silent as shockwaves cracked their resonating chambers. The human attack ships at the other end of the system jumped away without firing a shot. They had never intended to fight the Council fleet. They had just needed to draw them out of position. 3 billion Vraxians died in the following hours as the planet's ecosystem collapsed from the kinetic bombardment. The Council fleet, returning too late to make any difference, could only watch as one of their species' crown jewels turned into a tomb. Stone watched the damage assessment reports with no satisfaction, only grim necessity. Broadcast this message on all Council frequencies. This is the price of what you did at New Shanghai. For every 1,000,000 humans you killed, we will take 10 million of yours. Not because we enjoy it, not because we are monsters, but because you need to understand that there is no action without consequence. You began this war by spilling innocent blood. We will end it by drowning you in the blood of everyone who supports you. The message reached every corner of Council space. The reaction was immediate and catastrophic for the Council. 12 species declared immediate neutrality. 4 species withdrew from the Council entirely and requested non-aggression pacts with humanity. The Council's ruling coalition, 600 species strong for 12,000 years, fractured into desperate factions trying to save themselves in the Council chambers. The Patriarch faced a reality he had never imagined. "We are losing," he said quietly, "not because they are stronger, but because they are willing to do things we never imagined. They have no honor, no restraint. They fight like animals." The remaining councilors looked at each other. 1 year after the massacre at New Shanghai, Ambassador Sarah Chun stood once again in the Council chambers. But this time, she was not alone. Behind her stood Admiral Stone and a full military guard, their weapons clearly visible. The chambers themselves were nearly empty. Of the original 600 species that had comprised the Galactic Council, only 73 delegations remained. The Patriarch sat in his elevated seat, looking far older than he had a year ago. The weight of losing an empire had taken its toll. Around him, the few remaining councilors looked like prey animals surrounded by predators. They were right to be afraid. Sarah's voice was cold and clear as she spoke. The Terran Federation offers the following terms for cessation of hostilities. These terms are non-negotiable. You will accept them in full, or the war will continue until the Council is completely destroyed. She activated a holographic display that showed the terms in every Council language. 1. The Galactic Council is hereby dissolved. All species currently serving on the Council will withdraw to their home systems immediately. 2. All Council military forces will be decommissioned and disarmed under human supervision. 3. Every individual who voted in favor of the attack on human colonies will be remanded to human custody to face trial for genocide. The patriarch's voice cracked as he spoke. You are demanding our complete surrender. Our extinction. Sarah's expression didn't change. No, we are demanding justice. You killed 5 million humans and thought there would be no price. We have killed more than 40 billion of your citizens in return, destroyed hundreds of your worlds, and shattered your ancient order. The council that ruled for 12,000 years no longer exists. What remains is 73 scared species wondering if humanity will let them survive. Whether you do survive depends entirely on whether you accept these terms. A Korthax counselor, one of the few remaining from the original attack vote, stood trembling. You are proving we were right to fear you. Look at what you have done. The destruction. The death. You are monsters. Admiral Stone stepped forward. We are what you made us. You taught us that in this galaxy, might makes right, that the strong can destroy the weak without consequence. We learned that lesson very well. The difference is, when humans have power, we remember what it felt like to be powerless. We remember what it felt like to watch 5 million of our people die for no reason other than existing. That memory is the only reason any of you are still alive to negotiate surrender. The truth of his words hung in the air. Humanity could have continued the war. They had the momentum, the weapons, and the will to completely eradicate every species that had been part of the Council. The fact that they were offering terms at all was mercy, even if it didn't feel like mercy to those receiving it. The patriarch looked at Sarah with something like understanding finally dawning in his ancient eyes. You spared us not because you are weak, but because you are strong enough to choose restraint. We never gave you that choice. We assumed we could kill your people, and you would simply accept it because we were powerful. We were wrong about everything. Sarah nodded slowly. Yes, you were. But understanding your mistake doesn't erase it. The terms stand. You have one standard cycle to respond. If you refuse, the war continues, and next time we will not be offering terms. The vote was unanimous among the remaining council members. They accepted full surrender. The Galactic Council, which had ruled known space for 12 millennia, officially dissolved 3 days later. The Patriarch and 47 other counselors who had voted for the colony attacks were taken into human custody. Their trials would last for years and become the basis for new galactic laws against genocide. But Sarah's work wasn't finished. The war had ended, but the galaxy needed a new order. 6 months later, representatives from 400 species gathered on Earth for the formation of the Galactic Assembly. This time, there was no hierarchy. No species considered themselves superior to others. The humans had proven what happened to those who believed in natural hierarchies of power. Every species had one vote, from the mighty Vraxians to newly contacted civilizations that had just developed. Radio. Sarah stood at the podium in the Great Assembly Hall in Geneva, looking out at the hundreds of alien faces. We gather here not as conquerors and conquered, but as equals who have learned a terrible lesson about the cost of war. Humanity did not want this war. We tried for peace. We asked only to be recognized as equals. We were answered with genocide. She paused, letting the weight of that word settle over the assembly. In response, we became something we never wanted to be. We became destroyers. We killed billions. We shattered the old order completely. We did what we had to do to survive, but we also went further. We made sure that no species would ever again think they could casually murder humans without consequence. A Zelthran delegate, colors shifting nervously, spoke up. Are you saying humanity will continue to threaten us? Sarah shook her head. No, I am saying that humanity offers you something the Council never did. We offer you genuine partnership. We will share our technology freely. We will defend species that cannot defend themselves. We will work toward prosperity for all, not just the powerful. But in exchange, we demand something simple: respect. Respect for human life, and respect for all life. The galaxy saw what happens when that respect is absent. The ruins of Council worlds serve as a permanent reminder. Admiral Stone stood beside her. The Terran Federation maintains the most powerful military force in the galaxy. We will keep it that way. Not to conquer, but to ensure that what happened to humanity never happens to any species again. The Reapers still patrol space. Our weapons development continues. Our fleets train constantly. But these weapons serve one purpose now: protection of the Assembly and its member species. Over the following decades, the galaxy transformed. Human technology, which the Council had feared for its rapid development, was shared freely. Worlds that had struggled under Council restrictions flourished. Species that had been suppressed found their voices. The Assembly became something the Council had never been: a genuine union of equals. But humanity never forgot. In every human school, children learned about the 5 million. They learned the names, saw their faces, heard their stories. They learned about New Shanghai and Proxima Centauri and TRAPPIST. And they learned what came after. They learned that humanity had been pushed to the edge and had pushed back so hard that the galaxy's oldest power, structure, shattered. On the anniversary of the massacre, every human world observed a day of remembrance. 14 billion people, now spread across 200 worlds, stopped their daily lives and spent 1 minute in silence. 1 minute for every 100,000 dead. 50 minutes of silence to remember what had been lost and what it had cost to make sure it never happened again. Sarah Chun, now retired from public service, stood in the memorial park built on the site where New Shanghai had once stood. The planet had been partially terraformed again, though the scars of the kinetic bombardment still marked the landscape. Monuments rose from the scorched earth, bearing the names of the dead. All 5 million of them. A young human couple approached her, their child between them. The father spoke quietly. "Ambassador Chun, we just wanted to say thank you. Our grandmother was on the last transport out of New Shanghai. She survived because you got the warning out in time. We exist because of you." Sarah smiled sadly. "I didn't save 5 million people. I only managed to save 600,000. The rest..." She gestured at the monuments. The mother shook her head. "You saved humanity. If you hadn't stood up to the Council, if Admiral Stone hadn't fought the way he did, we would all be slaves now. Or extinct. Our daughter learns in school about what you did. About what all of you did. She's 6 years old, and she already knows that freedom isn't free." The little girl looked up at Sarah with serious eyes. "My teacher says the Council thought we would be scared. But we weren't scared. We were angry. And we made them sorry." Sarah knelt down to the child's level. "That's right. We were angry. But you know what? We never wanted to be that angry. War is terrible. What we did to the Council species was terrible, even if it was necessary. I hope your generation never has to fight like we did. I hope the assembly we built means that no species will ever need to learn the lessons we learned." The child thought about this seriously, then asked, "But if someone tried to hurt us again, we would fight back, right?" Sarah looked at the monuments, at the names of 5 million dead, and then back at the child. "Yes, humanity learned something important during that war. We learned that peace is precious, and we should always try for it first. But we also learned that there are worse things than war. Slavery, extinction, accepting injustice because fighting it is hard. If we ever had to choose between those things and war, we would choose war. And we would win." The family thanked her and moved on to pay their respects at the monuments. Sarah stood alone again, watching the sunset paint the scarred landscape in shades of red and gold. The Galactic Council had wanted to teach humanity its place in the cosmic order. They had taught humanity something very different, that when you have no choice but to fight, you fight without mercy or hesitation until your enemy is broken beyond repair. The galaxy had learned that lesson too.